Hi guys, another great question was submitted after the Vet TV airing, and the question was, how do I seek treatment or how do I go through treatment when my trauma is still a classified event as far as the government is concerned? So there's two very simple answers to this. One is that you happen to see a provider who is within your agency or somehow in the private sector that still has some type of security clearance. Otherwise, you are still violating the non-disclosure portion of the classified agreement. Certain agencies, certain law enforcement agencies like the FBI, if you work in the Employee Assistance Unit, they will have security clearances. Various other agencies may have the same requirement. But when it comes to civilian sector, it's a little bit more difficult. So the better answer, or maybe the broader answer, if you cannot find a clinician who has a security clearance, is to see someone who provides a treatment modality called EMDR. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And we'll cover the process of how it works in a different video. But know for today that EMDR, at least in my experience, is the very best for treating classified traumas. And I say that because the other modalities will have you write or discuss in great detail time, date, location, what is occurring, who is dying, mission, objective, and really some of them even want to know the meaning behind the event. And that simply does not work for people who have classified traumas. And so for the 5 or 6 guys in the last couple of years that I have seen who've still had a classified trauma, have one currently, we use EMDR, and the reason for that is because there is very little talking. It's almost a struggle sometimes for those chatty Cathys who come in and they want to talk all the time. And so when you sit down with an EMDR provider, they're going to want you to bring up the image or the memory of that classified event. You don't have to share it with them, and they will say, think of the worst part, and then they'll implement the actual protocol. And part of the protocol is that we use some type of bilateral stimulus, meaning eye movements or some type of pulsator, auditory. You know, there are many options when it comes to that, and that part is not the point. The point is that as soon as you're done with the stimulus, or that set is what we call it, I will say in 2 or 3 words, describe for me what you noticed. And so all you have to say is hot, dark, and burning. And so I've had veterans, like the current one that I'm seeing, all that I know is that the trauma occurred on the continent of Africa, that it had to do with some type of explosion, either an airplane crash or a helicopter crash, that there's jet fuel everywhere, and that technically his team should not have been there, quote unquote, and the other support that came in also technically should have not been there either. And so in that processing, you can still share a lot about the trauma without violating the security clearance itself. The other piece to that is that if you have a really horrific trauma and you don't want to disclose it to the therapist, or for whatever reason, it may even be sexual assault, I don't know, but you may not want to disclose in great detail, or maybe your therapist doesn't need to know, whatever that may be, that can be a really great opportunity for both of you to do wonderful work without either party having to know great detail. And so those things can be accomplished. It is possible. You just have to find someone who is certified or trained in EMDR. That is our broader answer. Like I said, the much briefer answer is find somebody with a security clearance, but that is quite challenging in the civilian sector. So the second best answer is find someone who practices EMDR. You don't have to disclose everything. They don't need to know everything. And if they're a really good clinician and you do the homework, you should find relief of symptoms and resolution of that trauma without ever violating that security clearance. So hopefully that clarifies that question. Please submit any other questions to office@laurenrich.net, and I'll be happy to answer them for you.